My name is Eliot Mack, the founder and CEO of Lightcraft Technology. And unfortunately, my co-founder, Bill Warner, isn't able to join us today. He would love to be here, but Bill is wonderful. He founded Avid in 1988, and he basically drop-kicked the post-production world into the digital world. And it's really fun working with him because he knows a revolution when he sees one. And we're here at AI on the Lot talking about the future, right? Of how AI is going to work, how production is going to work, the future of filmmaking, um, the future of Hollywood. And it's useful to actually take a look back at in the beginning. Now, of course, the effects people in here will be actually no, it's George Méliès, but we'll work with that. And this is a shot from 2001, and this is the lander landing on the moon, and beautifully composited, Doug Trumbull and a whole team of people. And it's beautiful, but it's also incredibly laborious. So in this particular case, there are hand-painted animated mats to block the stars as the lander comes down because it's optically printed. And it's 5-hour motion control shots, optical printing. And so someone had to sit there and paint out each individual twinkling star as the lander goes over it. And Con Peterson talks about, he's been one of the artists on the project, talked about just the sheer effort it took to put all the pieces of this together, and hours and days and weeks. And, most of us haven't been on a motion control shoot because it takes forever to do these. And so things change. And one of the points that I want to make is that the art advances when artists can do things, when the artists can advance, when they can create. And that's going to be one of the things that we're talking about repeatedly over the course of this is things that there it is. Things that help the artist create. All right. So how do we go forward? And I saw another thing from 2001 that really struck me. That what they noted is as soon, even though they had storyboarded everything, I mean, this is for Kubrick. This is a structured director. As soon as they built the model and they put it in front of the camera, they realized, oh, wait a second, we should move it over here. Oh, no, we should frame it this way. And the act of creating gave them ideas to change it, to move, to adjust, to try different things out. And the inspiration led way to iteration. And this is one of the key things that we're going to be talking about here. In what the talk is about ultimately is merging and building a bridge between virtual production and AI. And the reason we want to do that is so we can actually help direct that to control what's happening artistically in the AI world using some of the tools that we already have. And what we're aiming for this is you want to aim for greatness, right? In entertainment, as with all these other industries, it's a long tail process, right? There's a few things that are going to be beautiful and memorable from a given year. A lot of things that people won't remember in 10 years. So you want to build a process that gives you the best chance of creating something that's just outstanding. Something you look back on in time and go, yeah, I'm glad I worked on that. I'm glad I saw that. All right. So how? All right. A brief history of Lightcraft. My original work was in robotics. So I designed the iRobot Roomba in a previous career. So if you've ever been chased by dust bunnies, that was or by a small robot, that's probably one of mine. I have received every possible video of Roombas doing every possible thing, and been blamed for several of them. So, but somewhere in there, I caught the bug for filmmaking, and I got interested in it, and I tried making a short film. It was terrible, just wow, Kelvin scale terrible. And it struck me like how difficult this process was, how hard it was to make something, wonderful and great. I wanted to understand this. And that was in many ways the beginning of Lightcraft. I learned a bit of visual effects, tried camera tracking my first shots, bloodbath. It's just could not believe how difficult it was to reliably track a shot. But I had a mathematical background. I got to understand why it's so difficult to track these shots, why we're trying to pull the information out of a few wiggling pixels on the screen, and said, wait a second, we can build a roboticist. We can solve this. We can build a machine that can actually track some of these pieces. So we built the Prevision and Halide virtual production systems used extensively on a number of shows, Once Upon a Time, Pan Am, V. And those systems, as big and unwieldy and painful as they were, markers in the ceiling and big racks of equipment and everything, did revolutionize how we could do tracked visual effect shots, moving camera visual effect shots. Because the tracking data was good enough, we could take it into post production and change it from maybe 30 shots an episode to 300 shots an episode. And that was instrumental. One of the pieces that will come through this talk is understanding what it takes to do production, what it takes to do a series. And, just for some numbers, a drama might be 500 shots an episode, 600 shots. A feature film might be 1,500, 2,000 shots. These are incredibly high numbers of things. And you have to understand that if you want to build tools that enable people to make that kind of project. And so we achieved that with Pipe V and Once Upon a Time, et cetera, won a SciTech Emmy in 2013 for the work. But after that, somewhere around 2018, I just realized this is frustrating. This isn't where we want to be. We started this company, as to help sort of indie filmmakers do this sort of thing. But these systems are $100,000. Like we're a long way from indies, and we want to change. So I'd known Bill since I started the company back in Cambridge back in 2004, and called him up and said, there's something here. There's some magic here. I can't figure it out on my own. I need help. And so he joined at first as an investor and now as my co-founder at Lightcraft. And for the past half a decade, we've been really rethinking just the fundamentals of visual storytelling. And we built an app called Lightcraft Jetset, and it has all and more of what we used to do with these road cases and equipment and cherry pickers on the ceiling and all these sorts of things that we had to do. We put it into an app, and it's very satisfying to do that. A lot of people are sort of surprised at what it can do. The reaction a lot of people think is it real? And mathematically, yes, we can track cameras. It's fine, but it lets us bring virtual production everywhere. And so a quick kind of overview of that. Um, all right, a little dizzying to see your edits on a giant screen. So that's a quick overview of what JetSet does. It's an iOS app. We can connect to cine cameras, do the same optical lens calibration we did with the big systems, live tracking, live keying, compositing, and it lets you actually do this project of virtual production. All virtual production is combining a live action world with a CGI world in real time, where you can move the camera and artistically define what you're trying to do. You can actually drive the camera. And again, this is fundamental to where we're going. And one of the things that's unusual about it is because we have this episodic origins. Like, this is just how we think internally: is what do we have to do to handle 600 shots an episode, right? Because that's just the table stakes of what you have to deal with an episodic project. But there's some exciting things, right? Anywhere can be a stage, right? And we're going to see some examples of that. And it makes it makes projects you couldn't do before possible. So, okay, let's look at the weaknesses, though, the strengths and weaknesses, because this is why we want to bridge virtual production and AI. Virtual production, whether you're doing it in a jet set or more traditional LED walls, a lot of the strengths and weaknesses are similar. Like, you can block out a set really quickly in 3D, very, very quickly, minutes. You can actually explore quickly. You can move the camera around, and the system will react as quickly as you move the camera. We build an accelerated post-production system for JetSet, so we can actually, to process the dozens and hundreds of shots that you need to do that. And the key thing here is you can just pick it up and move it. You want to change the shot, you move the camera. It's a 4-year-old can figure out how to move it. Now, the difficulties is that photorealistic detail, weeks. There are whole systems, procedural networks inside Houdini to get at all the leaves of grass there. On-set tracking, it's not subpixel. You have to fix things if you have a visible live action seam. And LED walls have a hard time with ground contact. So even if you're spending a lot, you still have some difficulties with that world. AI has almost the exact opposite set of strengths and weaknesses. You can generate photorealism really quickly, right? Very quickly in a prompt. And it can do lots of detail. You can experiment with different styles very quickly. Now, of course, it's hard to control, right? You prompt once, and the diffusing noise field decides where you're going to be at. which is difficult when you're trying to do a precise two shot. You might have to do respin and, prompt and pray is the joke. And it's not fast, compared to if you see a production working with a camera, actors, director of photography, you can see them shooting takes at the rate of maybe one a minute, two a minute. And so you can generate actually a huge volume of material really quickly that's under your control. And that's the core of the Hollywood process, is that having all those pieces together so you can go quickly. So in engineering, whenever you see two things that have almost perfect counter strengths and weaknesses, you start thinking, how do we mix these together? We do this with optical inertial tracking in Jetset, but in AI, we can actually combine these in different ways. So, okay, where do we start? And I think we should think of AI as a dial, right? That we can dial up and down. It's a tool. But it's not going to I don't think it's going to take over. I think we're going to find different ways of using it that are really very, very useful, phenomenally useful, and that can change the entire process in a really constructive way. But it's not a giant, Igor throws the switch. No, it's going to be a series of different things. And we're going to take you through a couple of the different uses of these. So on the small end of it, we have AI mats. And this is a deceptively difficult area, but anyone who's ever had to do roto will tell you exactly how long it takes to do mats. A long time. And as a great example, we have some work by Alden Peters, who is a local director we've been working with. And we did a series of shorts with him set in his Tidbits, his Friends of Sophia world. And the series of shorts is called Tidbits and Bytes, covering a relationship between a human and a machine. And this is done with a tiny crew. And we did 7 episodes of that. If you want to go to his YouTube channel, I put the QR code on the screen. Let everybody get that if they want it, because it's really fun to see his work. All right. So I have a quick example of that.
Every time I bring up the tiniest thing that bothers me, you shut down like this.
I'm reporting both of you to the Vice Department.
If they hit someone, it won't kill them. I've checked. Well, if you weren't on a list, you are now. Do you have a problem?
Do you have a boyfriend?
We made Friends of Sophia, Tidbits and Bytes with a crew of 6 people and 1 actor on a green screen. It's just kind of crazy because when this whole series started, like the first episode, I was just trying to figure out how to use Jetset, basically just BJ standing there facing different directions while I was trying to get Jetset Sydney to work. And now here we are 7 episodes later with a fully 3D printed head version of Bytes with interactive lighting. I used Jetset for the entire process. I would take the script, build a scene out in Blender, and then drop that into the Jetset app so I could find all my angles and come up with a previs edit of the episodes before we went into production, which made our production plan super efficient. On set, we used Jetset for a real-time preview of the scene and also for all of the camera tracking data, which was super helpful to show everyone exactly what we were getting.
Shooting on a green screen with a 3D character has been fun. You would think like the idea of it is challenging, but Jetset has kind of like afforded me that ability to see kind of what the world looks like before stepping into it, so it helps the imagination. Getting to see myself in a futuristic, dystopian setting.
We are going to use the tracking data in the phone to have the location in 3D space of where this flying drone robot is going to be. So we set this version of Jetset and the one on our cinema camera to have the same origin. And then when we have this flying around, I have all of the location data from this phone that I can then bring into Blender and have the actual location in 3D space of where the drone would be flying.
Jetset and Autoshop made the VFX process go incredibly fast by automating the early steps in the post process of, getting your footage in, getting everything tracked, and getting your project file set up. All that data comes directly from Jetset through Autoshop and then gets opened in a 3D program.
Seeing it all come together with the camera movement and the world building, it's always so incredible. It's just like, wow, we really did this with such a small team.
Tidbits and Bytes is a spin-off to a short film I made called Friends of Sophia. That 25-minute film took me 2 years to complete. The 7 episodes of Tidbits and Bytes have a runtime of about 18 minutes, and it only took 8 months start to finish. It was all possible because of Jetset.
Oh, that was a neat project. Yeah, Alden. Well, in that project, one of the pieces that we ended up working on is exactly this piece of rotomats, right? So this is an example of the underlying pieces of it. And anyone who has done 3D tracking will be going, oh my goodness, this is possible. People who haven't done it goes, what's the big deal? This is one of the pieces that is standing. This is the monster in the basement that is lurking between you and doing your project, is being able to track and handle hundreds of shots. In this case, we're using AI to generate a rotomat around the actor. We're going to tell Synthesize to automatically detect all the points in the scene that we want to track, and if you don't tell it where the actor is, what happens is it puts all the points on the actor, and then that completely breaks the math of the solve. My background in graduate school, where I took nonlinear least squared solvers, I didn't think it was going to be useful at the time. I was incorrect. Turns out to be remarkably useful for this. So that AI generated mat would have taken, an hour for someone to sit and roto that through a course of a shot. This was a pretty simple shot. There are other shots that get very, very complex. You have overlapping rotomats and the whole craziness. Just ask a friend of yours who has done roto and see the reaction. And we can automate that. And once we can automate that, then we can script the rest of this tracking refinement process to, based from the tracking data we took on set with Jetset, and to combine it with some of the other information. And then all of a sudden we can get do a solve and get a subpixel tracked shot in a number of minutes. And again, this is not a flashy sort of thing. This is a kind of thing that most people will never think about. And yet, this is how you do projects. Someone has to figure out how to do these pieces. All right, we're going to turn up the dial a little bit. We're going to go to AI relighting, and this is with Jetset and Beeble.ai. And this is a amazing project called Entrenched. It's a Star Wars fan film done with Bad Beetle Entertainment. So this is a family team. Navaz and Roman are here in the audience. Yeah, you wave. Yeah, there we go. Roman is 19, and and this is with a tiny crew, and 3D printing the props. We actually have, they brought over so much of the equipment over in the Culver Labs. So you definitely come over and see how they did this, because what is going on is they basically recreated a little miniature Weta Digital and Weta workshop in their garage, right? And a production facility. And they're able to construct a fully realized movie. And we have a trailer here.
It's a dark time for the rebellion. The Empire is coming. The most trained fighters the rebellion's ever had. But I can tell they're still afraid. I'm still hanging on to hope.
And I want to understand what's becoming possible. I want to show you a quick behind the scenes of this project.
Hi, this is Roman Dowling, and this is a quick behind-the-scenes look at our short film, Star Wars Entrenched.
Now this is it's exciting, and in this case, the AI piece that we're working on is a specific technical piece of it, which is AI relighting. And this is something that you could not do just a couple years ago, and now we can put these pieces together. So in this case, you're seeing a composite of a reaction shot of an explosion. Now, this is all shot on green screen, and so the explosion and the reaction shot are all are synthesized. So we took the shot in Jetset and loaded, and with AutoShot, loaded this automatically into Blender, which is where we can actually see the pieces together. And we also processed the take in Beeble.ai, which generated a set of extremely high detail normal maps for the live action footage, so that when we put it back into Blender, all of a sudden now we can relight. And we can relight with the nuances and the shape of the original footage. Even though it's on a flat plane, it can start to behave as if we had the actual 3D actor there. So you're seeing moving around a light, and again, it's reacting to the individual contours of the actor and the costume. Now, the explosion is another piece off to the side, which is a 2D image plate mapped into the 3D world. And again, it's relighting. You can animate the lighting on the explosion. And then that lighting of the explosion will then cast light upon the character, so you have reactive lighting. Now, this is the kind of thing that normally on set, you have 3 teams doing this. You have somebody over there with a DMX control box going in 3, 2, 1 to change the lights. And then in post, you have to somehow try to animate the lighting shots to match what you did on set. And if you're extremely careful, you've kept track of the DMX lighting controls, and you bring them back over and you try to import them in and then line them up. And let me stop this for a second. And it's very, very, very tricky. Now they can actually do this in a more straightforward manner. Now, this next example is also another really fascinating example of the use of AI. Bring this over here. This is such fun. So, for the shot of the speeder hitting the walker, Roman animated the initial trajectory and the reaction shot and the reaction of this. But the actual comp framing and composition is being done in real time in Jetset. So they loaded the shot into Jetset, and Roman has this projecting on their living room TV while he reacts to and follows the speeder hitting the impact of the into the walker, and then at the same time, Navaz is on the side with a AI-based image motion capture app on another iPhone pointing at him, and he is actually driving the animation of the mocapped character as a reaction to the camera shot. So there's a lot of layers going on here. But what's happening is they're using these AI tools to capture performance, to augment human performance, and directly drive the creative process. This is where we want to go. Where we, instead of, and we're well into Peter Jackson country here, right? We've all seen the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes where he has a mocap rig and he's chasing the cave troll around, and it took Weta Digital and a team and a warehouse and markers on the camera, etc. And they're able to do this in their living room, right? So the living room can be both a source of viewing entertainment, but now you can actually start to create entertainment. So, all right, so now we're going to crank the dial again. We're going to go to AI video to video backgrounds. And again, 3D virtual production, we can control it. It's hard to get detail. 2D, good at detail, hard to control it. So let's combine it. And what I'm going to show you here is sort of the first steps, kind of, you know, image 101. If you want to see the production version of this, you want to take a look at the ETC Pathways project. We're collaborating with them, and it's a fantastic project. If you're a studio who is trying to figure out, okay, how do I look at putting this into my pipeline, you want to talk to Eric Weaver and Sarah Ivy over at ETC, because that's a fantastic project. So let's look at some of the precursors. All right, you're going to need a Proxy 3D set. And in this case, we have a quick video done by Spencer Bell, who is a media teacher in middle school and high school over in Utah. And he recorded this originally for his students. And it's showing the fast construction of a 3D scene in Blender using Megascans assets. Because we really like the Megascans assets, we wanted to be able to assemble things in Blender. So we wrote an importer. It's free on the Lightcraft website. You can go and actually just import the assets and construct something really quickly. And one of the things you should be saying is, wait a second, he just built the scene in some matter of like a couple of minutes. And this is exactly it. You want to be able to run a dial back and forth between what you're building in 3D and what you're building in AI, and kind of shift back and forth as whatever makes sense. So we build a Proxy 3D scene. You're going to need some track shots, courtesy of John Lazier. And John is a director we were working with to help make this stuff all real. And he is standing in the foreground there. And this is an example of the process we're going to use, which is we have a basic, fairly low-res block tracked background that's loaded into Jetset, so we can do the real-time camera tracking and get the background motion of the shot. And then we're going to run it through a image-to-image pipeline to actually generate the detail and the prompting style that we want. So, in this case, we'll start off with this scene of a card game gone wrong. All right, draw. There we go. All right, and one of the things that's really interesting here is the actor nuance, the performance, etc. It's just all there, right? There's AI characters and AI actors are going to get better and better, but a good actor is just instantaneous and it's magical. That's one of the things we want to keep in all this. And the background is just a relatively plain 3D background. I think we imported it from Unreal. I brought it over. In Jetset, we don't really have much of a lighting model, so it's just very, very plain. But the geometry is still there, and that's the key piece that we want. So the flow of this is our fairly homely looking post-production piece of software called AutoShot. Not going to win any beauty awards, but what it's going to do is it's going to take the tracked camera data we brought from Jetset, and it's going to drop it into our Blender scene along with our camera original footage, like the extracted EXR sequence for that particular take. And now we have this, and we have the camera track, and we have the image information, the 3D model, all in one place. So now we can actually do some fun things. And in this case, we're just playing it through so you can see that the camera track matches, things are aligned to where they should be. But the part that we actually really want in this case is not the foreground. We actually just want the clean background. So we're going to go up, and we're just going to turn off the foreground image plate. Before we were relighting it, in this particular process, we're just going to turn it off for the time being. And we're going to render out just the image sequence of the clear tracked background. Again, this 3D scene, not going to win any beauty awards, but all the geometry is there. And this is one of the key pieces of this process, is that traditionally to get enough detail in the scene to be useful, you need to have a huge amount of geometry in the scene. But we just need proxy level geometry. We just need the outlines of things to be pretty good. Excuse me. So then we're going to go back and open up. It's handling our file management, which is another unsung area. This is one of the pieces that we work on to handle, so you don't have to think about this. This is one of the pieces in between you and having your series made, is file management. It's a strange thing. So then we're going to take that and we're going to drop this into Runway. And again, there's a zillion different ways to do this. Runway is the current example we're working with. And we're actually going to go back a generation to the Runway 3 Alpha, because we need their specific video-to-video model. And we're going to drop in our clip. Runway is going to inform us that it doesn't handle 1920 by 1080, so we're going to have to crop it. That's fine. We'll fix that a little bit later. And we're going to go through this and load this in. And then we're going to use a piece of this called first frame restyling. And all that means is, wait for it, we're going to export the first frame and we're going to restyle it. So we're going to export this, bring it over, and write out our first frame, and we're just going to load it into, in this case, Midjourney. Again, all these tools I would think of them less as specific things because the models are changing enormously and quickly. It's more of the technique and the underlying method that we're using. So we're going to load it into Midjourney's new editor and load in the image and set up our prompts. And we're actually going to use a specific feature in Midjourney called retexture. And what that's going to do is we prompt it, and it's going to restyle the image while retaining the geometry of the image, all the outlines, all the shapes, all the movements of the actual saloon in this case. So there's our old saloon. And to prompt it with an Old West saloon, sunlight coming in, dust in the air, give us our properly Western feel. It's going to generate for a bit, and it's going to generate some wonderful imagery. And we that's the fire from the sky version. And so we can look through and find a couple different ones that we like. We picked this one out because it fit closer to the foreground imagery. That's the wild one. That's the Spielberg version. And all right, so we're going to grab that and we're going to download it, and we're just going to bring that image right back into Runway, and we're going to use our restyled first frame, and that way we can use that to drive the generative aspect of it. Again, pretty simple steps. Everybody's already using Runway, and Midjourney. It's just a new way of hooking all the pieces together. So we're going to bring that in, and now we're going to upload that and tell it to generate. And using the restyle, it's going to do so. All right, so it cooked it, and now what we have is a restyled background plate that is using the emotion and the geometry of the camera of the original one that we loaded into Jetset and shot. And so as you move through it, there's our shot, right? Now, there's a bunch of wonderful things here. It generated the clear glass and the glints off the glass, the transparency in the windows and the window frames, the lighting. All these things are things that would take forever to get if we're trying to do this in pure 3D. Just forever, just to get the transparency in the cloth. So we're just going to load this over, and just to sort of show how it works, we're going to drop this back into Resolve. We already have the camera original plates from the shot. We're just going to drop those into your standard timeline. Of course, if you're actually doing this in production, you use a much more sophisticated way of keying. But this shows you this sort of the core simplicity of the concept of putting all these pieces together. So we're going to drop in our green screen scene, going to drop in our retracked and restyled background under it. For some reason, it generates with one frame less than we source it with. It'll be something we figure out over time. And then we're going to add a keyer onto it. And let's see where we're at here. Okay, yeah. Oh, one little quirk. So, of course, because we had to crop it, it's at a slightly different aspect ratio. So we have to do the goofy little things that are just going to be this generation's version of tweaks to get all the generative stuff to mesh with the live action footage. We're going to have to shrink it down and crop it very slightly, but these are fairly minor tweaks to do that. So we'll adjust it down, and I'll go through the details of this in a workshop later today over at the Culver Labs over at 4. So Hoon Kim and I will be doing a workshop on this process over there. And so there we go. So we have all the pieces together. We're just going to add a keyer, very simple keyer. And again, the professional compositors in the audience will be saying, "No, you should use the Delta keyer in Fusion." And we'll get there. We'll get there. We want to show the overall the piece of this coming together. So just grab a key, and there's our composited shot. So what's really cool here is now we can play it back, and we can see our restyled background composited with our live action foreground. And so we can actually see what the actual shot looks like. And all right. And again, the card game has gone wrong, and it's time to get serious. And we're able to use both the best pieces of live action production, a real actor, a director, a cinematographer, lighting, and we're able to use the pieces of virtual production and AI that we'd like to use. We save ourselves a number of weeks of retexturing wine bottles. So this is the simplest version of this. This is kind of the hello world version of this. All right, where does this go in the future? And the answer is a lot of different places. I think what will be fundamental with this is, this image-to-image piece is great, but it has a bunch of limitations. And we're seeing some of these things when we try out stuff in Pathways. One of the problems was we did a 90-degree pan, and the AI hallucinated it to a different style by the end of the pan. So you're like, where did that house come from? Now, what we've done in 3D for decades is we break things down. We build different models, then we assemble them into larger and larger scenes, and we layer detail over that. I think the same thing is going to be happening in the virtual production and AI world. We're going to be hooking together lores to 3D models so that we can assemble these things in many ways. It's the same ways we've been assembling 3D scenes for forever. Lores and proxies and comfy UI. Yeah, exactly. Uh, and that leads to a second part of scaling. What happens when small teams can process hundreds of shots? What happens when a small crew of people can make a show? And I think what we can do is we can actually make more things here. Los Angeles is one of these really unique areas, and where we have the talent, the writers, the directors, the actors, all so much creative talent. We have the sound stages, right? These green screen areas are all over the place, and when we can actually make a small tight team, we can make more things here. Um, and I'm familiar with doing some of the overseas stuff. I've done it. It's really hard. It's really hard to create huge productions, like plan stuff here and then do something somewhere else. I'd love to see more things done here. And it enables a different kind of creative. And this is something you want to think about. What Noaz and Roman and I have talked about is being full stack creatives. They were people who had not done some of these pieces before, but like, okay, guess we're going to learn a little bit of Blender to be able to make a movie. Great, I'm going to sit down and learn these pieces of it. So many of these techniques that they were going through and learning and creating, they're riffing on the fly to create these. And it requires a different mindset. You go through the traditional how to go somewhere in Hollywood, you go work on your script for years and pitch it and these sorts of things. And they just went and did it. And they realized, wait a second, this tool lets us do this. And I think AI is going to be an accelerant of that. It's going to make the full stack creatives even more powerful, even more able to create a show that they want to create, because there's no one can tell them no. It lets you do small team world building. So many of the projects we like seeing require this huge world building effort, and if everything from Star Wars to Game of Thrones to Avatar, all these different projects, is requires you to have to construct a world. Period pieces are the same basic problem. You're setting something set hundreds of years ago. How do you find that? And they're actually huge visual effects projects. So this is us saying this is the way, right? In the middle of all this, one of the big questions in this conference is, how do we go? How do we go forward? How do we use the things that we've figured out in Hollywood to do for decades, hundreds of years, not hundreds, decades, 100 years, and the best parts of that, right? And how do we go forward? And we think that one of the key things is bridging this virtual production piece to the AI world and using relatively simple 3D sets to constrain the AI to do what you want it to do. So we're saying, yeah, come and join us. And in fact, we're going to be showing several of these pieces, including some of the props from Entrenched, et cetera, over at the Culver Labs. We're going to be doing some demos all day today doing that. So I would strongly recommend you heading over there to talk to the team and see some of the demos, because we have a bunch of this running live, and it's really exciting to see the pieces come together. And Hun Kim and I are going to be doing a joint workshop on camera tracking and Beeble AI relighting at 4 over at the Culver Labs. And if you want any more information, you can link up. That'll take you to the Lightcraft website, and you can see all the different pieces here. Let's see. I'm gonna check how many minutes we have. We're good. All right. Thank you all. This is a lot of fun.